Are we recording?
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the 16th episode of the Pocketnow PocketCast. We have been on a hiatus for most of the summer. Why have we been on a hiatus? Well, some people have been traveling, some people have been busy. It's kind of been a hectic time. We're working on a redesign for the site. Don't tell anyone about that yet. So there's been a lot going on, and so we wanted to be able to sit down when things quieted down a little bit and work on a podcast. So consider this season 2 of the PocketCast, where we're going to go through all of the big events that have happened in the last week in the world of smartphones. And in joining me on the line, senior editor of Pocketnow, Anton D. Nagy. Say hi.
Hey, Brandon. Hey, everybody. How is everybody after, well, at least here, a super hot summer?
Yeah, it's been a crazy summer, not only in terms of weather. And I record this 2 days before a possible hurricane is coming to the East Coast,
Ooh.
and recording this 2 days after an earthquake occurred. But a lot has happened in tech news. Motorola being acquired by Google, CEO Steve Jobs resigning as CEO. And
Yeah, tell me about it. I'm on vacation 5 days per year, and guess what? Motorola buys Google, Steve Jobs resigns, Microsoft gets patent on its Metro UI, so it's crazy. I shouldn't go on holidays anymore.
Yeah. Tony was off while a lot of this happened, and everyone is suing everyone. Microsoft is suing Motorola. Apple is suing Motorola. Apple's suing Samsung. It is bitter out there, and naturally so. This is a very high stakes industry. Smartphones are still in the fastest growing consumer tech industry, and so these companies have their patents, and they look at their patents and they say, how can we find a way that X company is infringing on our patents? Because if we can win millions of dollars just by hiring a bunch of lawyers. And at the same time, it makes sense, right? I mean, part of the reason why companies can be great, part of the reason why Apple can be great, for example, is because they can protect their ideas. And if a company infringes upon that, if they copy it, the company that infringed on the patents shouldn't be rewarded with millions of dollars in sales. They copied off of somebody else. So,
Well, taking a look towards these patent issues, I'm sure lawyers are happy because it's a feast. They always have something to work on, and they're billing clients like Apple, Motorola, Microsoft, great clients, some great hours. But I think some of you will say that suing is bad. I'd say suing is good, and I say anybody should sue anybody and everybody who infringes upon someone else's patent. It's okay to get your inspiration from somebody, but nobody likes copycats. And I'm sure everybody will say that Apple is the one who's suing most. Well, maybe because Apple had the most innovative things others copied from. I'm just saying.
yeah.
But if there is no way for an amicable settlement, or I don't know, paying a certain fee for every device or cross licensing or something, then they should go to court, because it's really important to protect innovation and to protect intellectual property. It's otherwise it will be theft.
It is theft, and it's very complicated, and it's hard for most people to understand that don't have a law degree. You have a law degree, Tony,
Yes, I do.
which is interesting. It's very complicated, and the way the perception is kind of something that weighs down these companies a lot. I mean, this stuff makes headline news in New York Times, Wall Street Journal. All of the big tech sites report on it, especially when a company successfully puts an injunction in place against another company from selling a certain device.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Apple prohibiting sales of the Galaxy Tab 10.1 in certain countries, prohibiting sales of the Galaxy S2 in certain countries. And then it starts to impact you and me and everyone out there who wants to buy a Galaxy Tab 10.1 or whatever.
Exactly. And it's funny you should bring that up, because I was, of course, on holiday when this happened, and I've read that Apple recently managed to ban the Galaxy Tab from being sold in the European community. And I'm living in Romania, which is a country from the European community, and you can buy a Galaxy Tab here. So I'm not sure when that ban will be effective from. And getting back to the Galaxy S2, I've heard that it all comes down to Google's own gallery application, and it's not even a Samsung application. And Samsung said that they will issue an update as soon as possible to prevent any further infringements. So it's funny that Apple sues Samsung for Google's fault.
Yeah, it's a big circle, and of course, had a little drink there. One of the big reasons that Google bought Motorola was for all of those 17,000 patents that they can use to take to these companies that sue Android manufacturers and say, oh, no, we've got this patent that says you're infringing on our stuff, and we're going to countersue. So anyway,
by the way, do you think that Microsoft suing Motorola just a couple of days after the Google-Motorola deal has anything to do with Google acquiring Motorola's patent portfolio?
I don't think so. I
mean, why didn't they sue until now?
I really don't know. I think it might take more than just a couple of days to issue a lawsuit, to serve a lawsuit. You need a lot of evidence. You need to deploy certain things. I don't know what the process is, but
indeed you do.
I don't think it's related. Anyhow, let us move on. Let's get into the podcast. And if you hear some booming on my end, it's not because I had something for breakfast that I shouldn't have. It's because there's a big storm out my window here. So hopefully the power is not lost. So let's get into this. I think the thing that is on most people's minds is Steve Jobs stepping down as CEO. And we don't really know why, and we're assuming that it's because of his health. He's no longer able to perform his day-to-day duties with Apple, which is sad. But we got to look at this in terms of the iPhone and what this means for the iPhone. Of course, there are many rumors, saying that there's going to be a new iPhone in October.
At least one.
At least one, and there could be two. Perhaps on Sprint, perhaps on T-Mobile. This thing has been kept probably under the most tight wraps ever because there are so many conflicting legitimate rumors. So looking at it from the point of view of the iPhone, do you think short-term, medium-term, and long-term that CEO Steve Jobs leaving as CEO has any impact on the iPhone? What do you think, Tony?
Well, just for a short introduction, Steve Jobs didn't leave Apple as a company, as if I recall well, Bill Gates did. Bill Gates stepped out completely of Microsoft, but Steve Jobs...
Actually, correction, I was looking this up this morning.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, Bill Gates stepped down as CEO and became chairman. He's still chairman of Microsoft.
So it's the same thing with Steve Jobs too. Yeah. Well, no problem. Introduction aside, I don't think Steve Jobs stepping down as a CEO will impact on short and middle term. Talking about the next iPhone, either it will be September or October, it's Steve Jobs doing, so it's his project, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Steve Jobs on stage presenting the new iPhone. On the midterm, I don't think that Apple will lose its market share. Maybe it will even gain, because Steve Jobs came with a vision. It's his fingerprints all over Apple's products, regardless if we talk about the iPhone, the iPad, or MacBooks. On the long term, we might see maybe Apple declining a little bit, just like Microsoft is a little bit declining under Steve Ballmer. And I don't want to be biased here. It's just the way things are when somebody comes to a position as a successor, brings a new vision. Steve Jobs had his personality, strong personality, and attention to details, and that character of him being so excited about everything. I'm sure Tim Cook will do a great job, but he is not Steve Jobs.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think short term and medium term, meaning 2 years from now, we're not going to see that much of a change of pace. We're still going to see innovative products from them. It's beyond that where it's questionable, but I tend to think that Steve Jobs is such a high quality person, such a top-notch leader, that he wouldn't have done something such as leaving as CEO that would inhibit his company's ability to continue what he has put in place. In other words, he will be watching over the company for as long as he's able, and that also begs the question, is he sick to the point where he might not be around in a few years, unfortunately. But if he is, you better believe that he's going to be making sure that Apple is continuing the legacy of innovative products as chairman. I mean, that's a very high position. Chairman of the board makes the final decisions when it comes down to things that the board has to vote on. Not only that, he's probably going to have regular communication with Tim Cook and the other executives at Apple. And although he won't be involved in day-to-day, he's still going to have a lot of influence. And I don't think we should forget about these things.
You know, what will be interesting to see, I'm curious who will take Tim Cook's position as COO. That will be maybe a key position in Apple.
Who's that guy with the shaved head?
I don't know.
You know, I'm going to find out. That, you know, the guy that goes on the videos.
The young one, the British one?
Exactly, the young British one.
Yeah, I have a lapsus, but I don't know his name.
His name is...
He's in any and every product presentation. I think he is director of hardware. Or maybe not.
Yeah, you know... Not sure. I think everyone knows who we're talking about.
Yeah, and we're sorry we don't remember his name.
I mean, you know, they've got a lot of good management there. You know, they've been hiring a lot over the last decade, and they saw this coming. You know, this has been in progress. Steve Jobs went on multiple hiatuses. Is that what's the plural of a hiatus? Is it hiatus?
Hiati.
Hiati. So I mean, this has been planned for. This isn't like, oh my gosh, we have to figure out a succession plan. I mean, even in his letter, he hinted that there always has been a succession plan, and he's not stupid, you know.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so
well, before you want to move on, because I want to ask you something.
Sure,
of course, I was on a holiday when HP announced that they will kill webOS.
Oh,
and
yes,
I know that everything happens when I'm on a holiday, and I know that you got the Pre 3. How is the Pre 3 now that HP killed webOS?
Well, it's still the same webOS, of course. It's funny because I'm playing with it in the Pre 3 now. I ordered it, and I actually bought it for personal use because I was excited to sort of integrate it into my life. I bought it like a week before they killed it, and it doesn't change. What's that?
And now it's 99.
Yeah, exactly. And then they made the touchpad $99, and even if you want one, you can't get one. The Pre 3 is, you know, it's one of those phones where if this was released when it was announced in the beginning of 2011, it would be a contender. People would like it. But it's got a WVGA screen, which is okay, but not the best. It's got a single-core processor, which is okay, but not the best. 512 megabytes of RAM, which is okay, but not that. You see where I'm going with this. It's just, It's not really relevant anymore. And not only that, what really pisses me off is that all of the Google Voice applications, and there were two. One was called Voogle, and the other one was called like G-Dial Pro. Both of them don't exist in the App Store anymore, or the catalog, because the developers have had problems with HP. They are no longer supporting the product. So
they pulled
it, and I use Google Voice for my calls. I use it for my text messages. I can't use the Pre 3 now, even though it's got AT&T 3G, which is kind of cool for anyone out there that actually wants the Pre 3. But it's a cool phone. You know, you would think that with almost double the pixels, there'd be a big difference in webOS 2.2, but there's really not. It feels the same. Everything's a little bit bigger. They really didn't take advantage of the added screen space that much. Overall, it's a disappointment. And
what do you think? I'm sorry to interrupt. What do you think killed webOS and the pre-smartphones? Was it their same form factor, or was it the platform itself?
That is a great question. And I was just talking about this with a friend. It's the lack of iteration, the slowness in bringing new products to market. It is not okay to announce a product in January, February, and have it available for sale in August. This is the smartphone industry. It's crazy. Not only that, but limiting to just form factors of a slide-down keyboard is ridiculous. Android has proven that people want choice. People want slide out keyboards. They want slide down keyboards. They want on-screen keyboards. And HP is forcing people to use this slide down keyboard. Now, let me ask you something. And I know I'm talking a lot. I guess I'm so excited to be back on the podcast. Let me ask you something. Do you remember, if you remember when HP bought Palm for $1.2 billion, their rationale was, we want to have a mobile operating system. We're going to make it on tablets and PCs, and we're going to use our incredibly wide distribution to really, get the webOS devices in more people's hands. Do you think HP has brought any advantage to the webOS ecosystem or product?
No. I think that except for paying up to Palm and exchanging the Palm logo to HP logo on the back of the phones, I don't think anything has changed. And I think this was the main issue. And by the time they realized that they should have done something different, they just couldn't do anything else. And that's why they killed it.
I don't get it. How could a company with so many resources have that happen?
Well, not every company is good in making every product the best. I mean, HP is a great company when it comes to laptops, notebooks, netbooks, computers. You cannot be the best or among the best in any or every of your divisions. If a company makes exceptional laptops, it doesn't mean that they will make exceptional smartphones. But then they had the experience of Palm. They only had to bring up the innovation. I think that if they would have changed just something with the Pre 3 and the Veer and the new devices which they launched this year, they would have received a boost. There would have been some buzz around the product. There would be something new. Everybody would have said HP brought something to the table. They changed this, and they are heading somewhere. But as far as I can see things from the outside and just observing, they're just standing in place.
Right. And then you gotta ask yourself, what was it about webOS that, as the word, hastened the pace at which new products could be released? And I almost wish I could, for one day, be the CEO of HTC or Samsung Mobile or Motorola Mobility and understand what takes so freaking long. And I think it has a lot to do with the carriers and the testing. Mm-hmm. But then again, the question is, why not? They announced the Pre 3 in the beginning of the year. Why not release it soon thereafter, 1 month, as an unlocked device? Maybe make the price expensive. Okay, great. Very few people are going to buy it, but the people that are going to buy it are going to be more forgiving. They're going to tell their friends about it. They're going to hack the software, develop on it, make it better.
I think because HP is, Palm, HP's, and the webOS main market was America. And in the United States, if I know well from you and from the discussions with our other colleagues, the main idea is to get a subsidized phone. Now, I cannot speak for the entire, for Europe in its entirety. I can speak for myself and the countries which I know. We would rather buy an unlocked phone and not sign any contracts, put a prepaid SIM card in the phone and use it freely on whatever network I wish. Yes, of course, I have to pay a higher price for an unlocked phone, but I don't have to stay 2 years with the carrier. And another thing is that I can speak for Romania again. Strangely, if you buy the Samsung Galaxy S2 from either Orange or Vodafone, you will get a lower price than an unlocked phone if you sign a contract. But by the end of your contract, if you add up all your monthly dues and bills to your carrier plus what you pay for the phone, you will get it more expensive. Even Vodafone has a higher price on the SGS2 on contract than what you would pay for the phone unlocked, which is crazy.
It is crazy. And I feel like the model has started to shift a little bit in the US, where prepaid was reserved for people that just, they wanted a lower quality device. They didn't care much about the premium services. T-Mobile, AT&T, they're all coming out with better prepaid plans so that, someone could buy the Pre 3 from a European retailer like clove.co.uk, pop in an AT&T prepaid SIM card, and boom, they've got premium data, voice, and text, just as if they were to sign a contract.
Absolutely.
But if they, for some reason, want to change, let's say T-Mobile comes out with a better prepaid plan, they can move. So I think there is somewhat of a shift, and I don't think many people, everyone's locked into a contract, so they're not really paying attention. But I think there are a lot of really good prepaid options. In fact, I use T-Mobile prepaid as my primary line because I don't like to be tied down for 2 years. So, so anyway.
Yeah, just getting back to the point and drawing the conclusion, I personally think that the lack of innovation, both hardware and software-wise, killed HP smartphone division and webOS. This is my personal opinion.
I think we can chalk it up as such. And let us move on to the next thing. And sorry if you hear Tony breaking up a little bit.
Am I still breaking up?
A little bit. It's okay. It comes in and out. We're doing this over Skype since he lives 3,000 miles away. So
make that 10,000.
What?
Make that 10,000.
10,000 miles. I think the Earth isn't even 10,000 miles around, but maybe it is.
Maybe I'm just thinking in kilometers.
Yeah, maybe. So that his quality should clear up. It might have something to do with us, whether I don't know, aliens. So let us talk about the Google Nexus Prime. Now, the Nexus brand is a very strong brand. The Nexus 1 was awesome. The Nexus S was awesome. People still use the Nexus 1. People still use the Nexus S, obviously. Very good phones still. And now the Nexus Prime might come around. We don't really know much about it, except that it might be a pretty beastly phone. We're talking perhaps a true 720p display, which I want to talk about for a sec. So regarding these HD screens, I wrote an editorial on August 18th about them. A lot of manufacturers right now like to call their screens HD. Motorola will do it, Samsung will do it. They say clear, crisp HD screen. Well, it's not HD. It's not even close. They do QHD screens right now on Android, which is 540 across by 960 up. And they call that QHD because it's literally the quarter of 1080p HD resolution. Hopefully you're following me so far. If there were to be a phone like the HTC Vigor, for example, or the Samsung Nexus Prime that's coming out with a true 720p screen, that would make for a pixel density of 342, which means if you take a cross-section of the screen, you cut off a 1 inch by 1 inch square, you would count 342 tiny, tiny, tiny little pixels. On the iPhone, if you do the same thing, you'll get to about 326 pixels. Now, Steve Jobs likes to say that after 300 pixels, the eye cannot see pixels anymore. So there really wouldn't be that big of a difference between, 326 ppi and 342 ppi, except that you have more screen real estate to work with. UIs can improve. So this upcoming Nexus Prime to run perhaps Ice Cream Sandwich on Android 4.0 with a dual-core 1.5 gigahertz processor, maybe even a quad-core processor with the 720p screen is going to be a freaking beast. It's going to be ridiculous. And in 2012 is going to be the year of the 720p display. And it's going to be super crisp, super clear. It's going to blow away what Apple's done with the iPhone 4. And it might be coming to Verizon first.
It's just normal that we're going to higher and higher resolutions, because let's take just a couple of examples. We don't even look at smartphones if they cannot capture 720p video. And if you capture a 720p video and you play that back on a screen which is smaller than the video's native resolution, of course the quality gets worse. This applies, of course, for pictures taken too. This is number one. Number two, I have to agree with you on the screen real estate. Sometimes my screen, regardless if I use iOS or I use Android, seems to be so tiny that I have to flick to the second or the third home screen to find what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Maybe smaller icons, larger screen in terms of real estate, more information available at a glance. aside from the usual, which is good for your eyes and better quality and display, I think it's all about more information available to you at a glance whenever you take a look at your phone.
Yeah, and you know what would be cool? I'm trying to find a tape measure, but I cannot. When we get to these higher resolutions, 720p on an Android screen, um, so that we don't have to shave our fingers down to be really tiny, it would help if they could make the screens bigger. Well, you make the screen bigger, the device gets bigger. Well, not necessarily true. If you take a device like the Evo 4G or the Galaxy S2, and you look at it, you see how much extra space they have on the sides, on the top, and on the bottom to stretch that screen. I bet if you were to maximize the screen on the Galaxy S2, the Evo, whatever, you'd get to about 4.6 inches, maybe more. And it would have to be widescreen because 720p is a widescreen resolution. And that means that you'd have to increase the screen size more so vertically than on the sides, which is perfect because there's going to be more room on the top and the bottom. So I think it's going to be really sweet to see what comes out in 2012 in terms of larger screen devices with super high-res displays and crazy fast processors. It's going to be glorious.
Yeah, but I have a question. And of course, the Nexus Prime is rumored to have at least a 5.2-inch display, 5.20 something. What does it make a tablet, and what does it make a smartphone? Where's the line between them? I mean, holding a 5.2-inch smartphone in your hand, you can say that you're holding a small tablet in your hand. So what's that thin line between smartphone and tablet, because it's blurring away?
I think the line's very easy. I think it's pocketability. I think at the point at which you cannot hold it in the pocket comfortably, it's a tablet. But then there's a big difference between like that borderline tablet around 5 inches and a comfortable tablet at 7 inches. And obviously you can't comfortably put a 7-inch tablet in your pocket. You obviously can't do a 10-inch tablet. So
you'd say that up until 6 inches, it's okay to consider it a smartphone. 6 inches and above, it would be a tablet. Because the software, of course, it will be the same. It's just the dimensions, the physical dimensions of the device.
I don't think so. I don't think 6 inches is the number. I mean, if they could come out with a 6-inch phone that would actually fit in your pocket, the dimensions would be too wide. It'd be too wide, too tall. It wouldn't work. I think 5 inches is probably the maximum if you make good use of the bezel and you reduce the size of the bezel as to not have to make the casing of the device very.
But wouldn't make that 5.2-inch Nexus Prime a tablet?
Well, I think for the Nexus Prime, we're talking about maybe 4.5-inch or 4.6-inch. Where do you see 5.2?
Well, the rumors were talking about a 5.26, if I recall well, inches, but there are several other rumors which talk about a 4-point-something, and I've read a recent report, and it said that we could expect 2 phones from Samsung, basically with the same internals, the i9220, which would have a 5-point-something display, and an i9210, which would basically have the same internals in terms of CPU, memory, and whatnot, but with a 4-point-something screen.
Well, I guess we'll have to chalk this up as...
Yeah, we'll talk about this next week because I'm sure by this time next week we'll know more.
By this time next week, we should know more indeed. We've got the Samsung event a week from today, and Tony will be in Berlin for IFA. A lot of a lot of fun smartphone stuff. So expect hands-on coverage. If there's going to be a Nexus Prime at IFA next week, we're going to get our hands on one and play with it in its full glory. So
we will.
So let us move on. HTC. This is the season of smartphone releases, of course. Holiday season's coming up. Companies want you to buy stuff.
And we will.
And we will buy stuff. Yes. HTC is holding an event in London, which is important because usually when they do it in London, it has nothing to do with AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, or Sprint.
And just a second, I'm interrupting you. The same event is going to be held also in other places like Paris too, and so in France and Italy. So it's going to be a simultaneous event from what I've read and from what I've seen on HTC's regional Facebook accounts.
Okay, good. Simultaneous event in Europe. So it's a very generic invite, as is the case. They're going to say, we want to show you what's next. Okay, and so we're thinking that they're going to be featuring two Windows Phone 7 devices, the Omega, the Eternity, which should be pretty exciting. We haven't seen new Windows Phone hardware since, well, a freaking year. It's been a very long time since we've seen Windows Phone hardware, and which sort of begs the question: how do you see the current state of Windows Phone? I guess let's look at it from the perspective of Microsoft, who want to sell lots of devices and earn lots of royalties. And also from the perspective of users who want the platform to be competitive with Android, that want awesome devices to be able to buy. What do you think?
Okay, so from Microsoft's perspective, Microsoft has been coming up with all these excuses. All we've been hearing from a year now is that Windows Phone 7 was rushed to the market. It lacked some features, which is the reason why it didn't catch up to the competition, Android and iOS. I recently read that it sells even worse than Bada. So Microsoft came with a product which was not ready for the market. And we accepted that. I did, at least. And Microsoft said that the next big thing to come is Mango, which will fill up all the holes and will deliver the experience which would have been delivered or should have been delivered last year when Windows Phone 7 was launched. If Microsoft screws this up, they will get out of the smartphone business, and this is my personal opinion, because 1 year after Windows Phone 7 is out in the market, they are filling up the blanks. But I'm not sure, and now I'm transitioning to the user's perspective, I'm not sure the users are willing to try anymore a Windows Phone or another platform for that matter, because I'm okay with my Android or I'm okay with my iOS. Why should I switch to Windows Phone when I did the switch from Windows Mobile to the current platform I'm using?
Yeah.
So
timing is key here, and it's always not on Microsoft's side. They always have timing wrong. I think in part because the company is so big, and it's tough to innovate. So I think from Microsoft's perspective, no, they're not making money on Windows Phone 7. They have 5% of the market share, but they can pull an Xbox here, and they can lose millions and millions of dollars for years and years. And if they have a reason to believe that it's going to be profitable, they'll stick in there and bleed money until there's a turning point. So I think Microsoft's not happy with it necessarily, but they know they have to be serious about it. I mean, they have to be in mobile. They are a software company. For the users... Oh, sorry, you want to say something?
No, go on. I was going to agree with you.
Very good. I like it when you agree. From the user's perspective, I can't really tap into the brains of the average smartphone using person, but for me, I've used Mango. I haven't used it yet as a daily driver. It's out there. You can get it on pretty much any phone. Mango's very good. But when I compare it to my Samsung Galaxy S2 running Android, which it's an extremely fast device. It's got, I've rooted it. It's got a custom ROM, and it just works perfectly. I can't feel a need to use Windows Phone 7 unless something comes along to make it interesting again. And I think that's where the hardware is going to come in. Microsoft put all its cards on the table a long time ago with Mango. Here's what we're going to fix. Here's what's going to happen. So we know that Mango is what we got until next year. There's Tango coming out, which is going to be for low-end markets, and then Apollo, Windows Phone 8 in presumably a year from now. And there's got to be some really, really interesting hardware to jazz up Windows Phone 7, and we're going to get it, hopefully to the extent that Android is. So let me ask you this, Tony. What hardware evolutions would you have to see that run Windows Phone 7 Mango to make Windows Phone 7 look awesome to you?
Oh, I got an answer to that. I'm waiting for C-Ray. So I'm waiting for that fantastic Nokia hardware running.
Oh, yes, C-Ray. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm waiting for that at least 12-megapixel camera that would probably kick some Nokia N8S, and that will be a huge selling point for me. I've been using Mango RTM, and even the Mango Beta 1 and Beta 2s as my daily driver. I have nothing against Windows Phone. I like it. It does everything I throw at it. I don't need anything else. It's just that I hate it running on my LG Optimus 7, which is a Wave 1 device, and it doesn't make good pictures and
Yeah.
so on, you know.
They were all the same, you know. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't even know yet if Mango is going to be able to support dual core or even need it. But I completely agree with you. The Nokia partnership is going to play out big, and we're going to see this Nokia C-Ray, which is of course the Windows Phone 7 version of the N9, and it is some glorious hardware. I mean, it is. I see a picture of it, and I feel like that thing inside of me that says, "I gotta have it. I don't care, you know, I don't care what it costs. I gotta have one in my pocket because it's made of metal. It's just it's it is really good stuff." And um, you know, hopefully Nokia gets it right with the C-Ray. They release it in time for this next wave of devices, and hopefully they've optimized the heck out of it so it's really fast. Screen sensitivity is off the charts. The camera is impeccable. And, you know, we expect nothing else from Nokia. They have really good cameras on their phones. But yeah, C-Ray is going to lead the way. You know, there's rumors of a Galaxy S2-like device running Windows Phone 7, which
I'd buy that one too.
I'd buy that. You know, with a Super AMOLED Plus screen, they got to come out with a successor to the Focus, certainly, and that's exactly, you know, the Focus is a Galaxy S, and so the update would be a Galaxy S2 inside with perhaps an Exynos processor. Do you know about whether Windows Phone 7 supports, you know, dual core?
No, from Chassis 1, which we know it's Snapdragon 1 GHz processors, and Chassis 2 was made public at this year's Mix, and it's 800 megahertz processors. And this is a personal concern of mine because I've heard so many rumors of upcoming HTC Windows phones and other Windows phones sporting CPUs which are above 1 gigahertz, 1.4, 1.5. I don't think they fit in the current chassis specifications, so I'm not sure what's happening. Microsoft is clear. Either Snapdragon 1 gigahertz processor, which is Wave 1, or Snapdragon 800 megahertz processor, which is Wave 2. Where does that 1.4 or 1.5 fit in?
Yeah, we're going to have to see about that. And, you know, there's going to be, I think, it looks like there's going to be several different OEM events, like HTC's doing one, of course, that we just talked about. Instead of, like last year, Microsoft held the event and they released 9 devices. I prefer that. I think that's better. So, you know, obviously it's easier for us to cover being in this industry, but it helps to sort of unify the message. And, you know, Ballmer could explain what this Wave 2 means.
Do we really want that? And as we speak about Windows Phone Mango and the OEMs today, the first Windows Phone 7 Mango device was launched in Japan. Toshiba, together with Microsoft and carrier KDDI, launched the IS-12T, which is a strange name for a Windows phone. So it's the first Windows Phone Mango on the market. And if you live in Japan, you can grab it. It's great. It's waterproof. It's got a 12-megapixel camera. I like the pink one. Does that make me kinky?
Does it make you kinky? I don't think that's the right word.
Okay.
Anyway, let's move on from this before we get in trouble.
Okay.
So, Antonio, you're breaking up a little bit there, so maybe you can make an adjustment.
It's the pink Windows Phone.
It's the pink Windows Phone that's making you break up. Anyway, so next up on our list, when they released the iPhone 4, they kept the 3GS around at a lower price, and the rumor is, it's funny that every piece of Apple news is a rumor. Rumor is that they're going to keep around or they're going to make an 8 gigabyte version of the iPhone 4, going to keep it around for a lower price. But I'm kind of wondering, you know, why are they going to make an entirely new phone? They don't make an 8 gigabyte right now, 16 or 32. Why would they make a lower spec device? In fact, I would think that they would go higher. They'd go with a 32 gigabyte model. They'd make it $99 or $59 or $49, and they'd have the iPhone 5 be, of course, at the premium price. So that is kind of strange that they would they would do that. I think there's no question that the iPhone 4 has another gear. I mean, it's still really great hardware, and there's a lot of people that still want it. And if it's priced lower, all the better.
Yeah, but what if they go in 6 months from now with a free iPhone 4? They will have a budget iPhone 4S with a lower capacity storage but higher specs, like maybe the iPhone 5, some cheaper materials, and have the premium flagship, which will be the iPhone 5. Then they will have something for everyone.
Wow. And that's something they would do. They would give us more than we thought. So they'd take the old version, make it better, sell it for less, bring out this amazing new thing with a dual-core processor and bigger screen, 20 gigs of RAM or something like that.
And make sure it will be elegant and it will be top-notch, and the materials used will be, of course, on Apple standards, because it's so unlike Apple to come up with a product which would be squeaky and could be easily scratched and plastic and so on.
I like my phone squeaky. Why don't, I don't think that's such a bad thing.
Well, I hate it. I like to keep a phone in my hand, and when I squeeze it, I just want to feel a compact slab in my hand.
Yeah. Very cool. Let us move on. I think we're going to skip ahead a couple of things here for the sake of keeping this as close to an hour as possible. Let's go to back to Windows Phone. I always kind of had a problem with the way that Microsoft thought about their products. They're very business focused, so they try to get into every market they can, and they see big dollar signs in the lower end market, developing countries, and people that are 12 years old or whatever, and don't have a job and or whatever. And we're talking about Windows Phone Tango, which is a version between Mango and Apollo, and Microsoft has confirmed that there's a Tango version for lower end devices. And I'm trying to think back, didn't they do something like this for Windows Mobile? They had some sort of lower spec something.
I can't remember. I mean, we had Windows Mobile 5, then came 6.0, then 6.1, then 6.5, and from what I know, even low-end, my HTC Trinity ran Windows Mobile 6.5.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I'm thinking about, but the point is, why spend resources, people's time, energy, and subsequently money to develop this risky version of Windows Phone for developing nations, when they could take that same amount of resources and plow it into Apollo or Mango updates or whatever? I don't get it. I don't get why they would sidetrack this early in.
Well, of course, it's because of the money, because they want to sell more, and the more markets you're in, the more money comes in. If you see, just Windows Phone, as you know it now, was officially launched and supported in 5 countries with 5 languages, and that's a deal breaker for many, including me, who I'm in Romania and I cannot use the live services. But I don't look at Windows Phone Tango as a completely different platform, because that would introduce some fragmentation, and Microsoft doesn't want that.
Right.
I'm not sure how they will pull this off, because having, say, a Samsung whatever running Tango in Romania and a Samsung whatever running Mango in the United States, what's the difference? So more fragmentation, more bulky and late updates, and they don't want more question marks in the equation. I think Tango will be an update which will apply to all of the Windows phones, will bring some new features which will not be ready, or they don't want to hold on to them until Apollo comes out. But maybe we could see those Chassis 2 phones with 800 megahertz, which will be cheaper. And talking about cheaper phones, one of the main targets of Nokia is to come out with cheap Windows phones. So I think we're going to see an update which will be called Tango, which will be applicable to all Windows phones, but it will introduce maybe Chassis 3 or maybe optimization for the lower end 800 megahertz processors. This is the way I see it, because if we're talking about a completely new platform, which is only for countries like, I don't know, Serbia, Croatia, Romania, and so on, countries which are not important to the market as the USA, UK, Spain, Italy, Germany, and so on, Australia, I'm sorry if I forget somebody, then it will be a big trouble for Microsoft.
I don't even want to talk about phones with 800 megahertz processors. It's depressing. It really is. But
what does it take for a phone to operate well? Do you need strong dual core processors like an Android?
If you put Windows Phone 7 as it exists now on a device with an 800 megahertz processor, it's going to be slow. That's why they're probably going to make Tango to take out some of the animations and make for a poor experience so that they can make more money in other markets. It's disingenuous to the brand, but
Yep.
Well, let's move on before I throw something at the monitor here. Speaking of Microsoft, they've confirmed that Windows Phone 7 devices will have front-facing cameras with Mango and will work with Skype. Of course, Microsoft bought Skype recently, and this is very, very interesting. I think this has implications across the entire smartphone industry. Apple has not been able to make FaceTime a standard in the smartphone industry. They've kept it closed to iPads and iPhones, and let alone whether people actually use it, which I don't think they do. It's made it impossible for an Android phone to FaceTime with an iPhone, and Microsoft is changing that. They're using Skype, which is an open protocol. Or is it open? I don't think it's not open, but everyone has it. There's 700 million Skype accounts. Everyone and their mother and their father has a Skype account. They're putting this into Windows Phone 7 so that Windows Phone 7 can, out of the box, talk to the Skype on your computer, on your Android phone, on your iPhone. And this is a really big jump for Microsoft that I think Apple could have done something with, but they didn't fulfill their promise of opening up FaceTime.
Well, I think FaceTime is specific for those who are Apple fans. I mean, if you have a MacBook or iMac and you are using an iPhone, or your buddies are using an iPhone, you will definitely use the FaceTime feature in the future. But Skype became, unwillingly maybe, a standard when it comes to video calling. I mean, as you said, Apple's FaceTime didn't manage to challenge it. Google's video didn't manage to challenge it. Quick and the other offerings are by far in lower quality than Skype is. But I think the issue here is not the actual catching up, but Microsoft is trying to bring something new to the table. I mean, as you said, you can use Skype from your Windows Phone out of the pocket to talk to anybody regardless of their platform. And this isn't a direct effect of Microsoft buying Skype, because everybody was afraid that now Microsoft has bought Skype and now we will have no Skype updates on Android and on other platforms. No, they are committed to constantly updating the experience. I think what we will have here is a new era, because Microsoft with Skype and with Facebook go for a huge trio. And if you add up Nokia to that game, then you got a winner.
That's a good point. There's a lot of very important assets at like Windows Phone 7 right now, and it'll serve them well. They're making big moves with Windows Phone 7. They're not really taking necessarily baby steps. It's a big deal to integrate Skype right out of the box. I mean, to be able to press the Skype button on your new phone you just brought home and type in your username and password, and boom, you're making video calls with anyone that has a Skype account. I think that's...
Yeah, and if they manage to integrate it the way they integrated Facebook in Mango, then it will be a hit, which I don't know how they will manage, because Mango has already RTM'd. We have already the first Windows Phone Mango out in the market. Skype integration will come somewhere at the end of the third or beginning of the fourth quarter. So it will come this year. I don't know how they will manage to implement Skype in the People Hub, maybe with a full ROM update, which will be delivered maybe by next time, July, to all of the phones.
Yeah, we'll have to see. It should be cool, and it should be poppin' fresh.
Yep.
All right. Well, with that, let's end the 16th edition of the Pocketnow PocketCast Season 2. Thank you, everyone, for your patience, and thank you for those of you that are listening. We apologize for the audio issues. We'll work on that and make sure that won't happen again. And
Was it that terrible?
Oh, it wasn't that bad. There's a couple of times where I had trouble hearing you, but I think people could make out what you were saying. But again, thank you, everybody, for listening, and please leave us some feedback on how you like this podcast and what you want to hear from us and what you don't want to hear from us, more importantly.
They don't want to hear about my kinkiness.
Yeah, I think that's a different thing in the U.S. than it is in Romania, but we'll talk about that offline.
Okay.
All right, well, ciao for now.
Thanks a lot. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.